Is there a
Bro, I tell you, this match is a roll.
Okay.
If I win you, something will come out.
Don't play with me. Fast ball, fast ball. Ah, you know what? You go shot
Bro.
him. Now we got this man.
Keep the banter going with Glow Borrow Me Credit or Data. Dial *303# to borrow airtime or data and pay later.
Is there ready?
Go on, no one only one thing.
Okay.
Power your relentless ambition with ultra high-speed data. Glow Unlimited.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. And now on to the rest of our stories. Bill to create the Office of the Prime Minister as head of government and the Office of President as head of state and provide for a framework for the mode of election to the state offices has passed second reading in the House of Representatives. The bill was among the two constitutional amendments bills that scaled second reading in the House of Representatives on Thursday. Also among the bills is a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to provide for specific seats for women in the National Assembly and state houses of assembly. While another is a bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to reduce the period for determination of pre-election petition matters and provide for the establishment of pre-election tribunals for pre-election matters, regulate the process of suspending a member of the National Assembly from legislative duties. A bill for an act to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to review the requirements that qualifies persons to be elected as president and vice president, governors and deputy governors passed second reading as well. Also, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to review the status of the Federal Capital Territory as regards the election of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and bills for the creation of one state and Gobe state equally passed second reading. House of Representatives has called on the federal government to investigate the excessive use of explosives by quarry companies nationwide and especially in the Capital Territory. The House took the decision on Thursday after adopting a motion of urgent public importance brought before it during plenary by the member representing Ifelodun of Oyun Federal Constituency, Kwara State, Mr. Tijani Ismail. The lawmaker informed the House that the best quarry located along Arab Road in Kubwa, Abuja has present significant negative impact on the surrounding communities, particularly in relation to the degradation of houses, buildings, and other infrastructure decay, adding that the persistent detonation of explosives from the quarry has led to serious noise pollution, resulting in auditory impairment as well as respiratory health issues and ecological distress, especially among children and elderly residents. He said the activities of quarry companies violate the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act 2007, which prohibits mining operations that endanger human life, property and the environment under Section 61 and 116, and also accused quarry companies of breaching provisions of the Environmental Impact Assessment Act 1992, which mandates that any industrial activity likely to affect public health, among others, must undergo proper and relevant assessment and mitigation planning. He lamented that despite clear violations of environmental and public health laws, no substantial regulatory action has been taken to protect affected community residents, and following the adoption of the motion, the House directed its Committee on Solid Minerals to recommend the immediate revocation of the BZ Quarry's operating license if found guilty of violating health and regulations. It also mandated the Committee on Solid to summon the management of ZBZ Quarry, the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, and other relevant agencies for an investigative hearing to assess the health impact of the quarry's operations, among others. Southeast professionals of Nigeria have strongly condemned the suspension of key democratic institutions in Rivers State following the declaration of emergency rule by President Bola Tinubu. The group has called for the immediate reinstatement of Governor Siminalayi Fugbara, his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu, and the state's elected lawmakers, warning that the political crisis is already deterring foreign investment. This is coming after last Tuesday, President Tinubu imposed emergency rule in Rivers State, citing ongoing political instability. A statement released on Thursday, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the group, Mr. Emeka Uguojo, criticized the move as counterproductive, stressing that foreign investors who had previously expressed interest in the state's non-oil sectors are now withdrawing, shifting their focus entirely to Lagos due to the absence of a constitutionally recognized government in Rivers State. Uguojo shared an account of a recent visit by an international investor who had been keen on opportunities in Rivers, Lagos, and Abuja. Before leaving Nigeria, the investor had expressed confidence in Rivers State's business environment following meetings with government officials, adding that with the sudden dissolution of the state government, all investment plans for Rivers have been abandoned, with Lagos now having the sole focus. The group stressed that the federal government must act swiftly to prevent lasting economic damage and urged the Federal Presidency and the National Assembly to reinstate Rivers' elected leaders and restore democratic governance in the state, while arguing that the people of Rivers should not be punished for political disputes among a few politicians. Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tinju Ojo has condemned the recent shooting of an immigration officer allegedly on the orders of a Chinese company operating in Nigeria, describing the incident, which occurred in Niger State, as an attack on Nigeria, and vowed to escalate the matter to the highest diplomatic level, particularly with the Chinese authorities. Speaking at a stakeholder sensitization workshop on the implementation of the Nigeria Visa Policy 2025 in Abuja on Thursday, the minister said there was nowhere in the world such an action would be tolerated, and the officer was simply carrying out his lawful duties when the incident occurred. The minister warned that the government has the authority to revoke business licenses and declare companies operating with impunity, and also announced the introduction of an expatriate administration system from May 1 to monitor foreign workers in the country. The minister also announced the launch of an online visa approval center to eliminate bureaucratic bottlenecks and reduce corruption in the visa application process. The Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Kemi Nandap, said the NIS would fully digitize its e-visa platform and reduce visa classifications from 79 to 44 to enhance accessibility, transparency, and efficiency in the new visa policy. And now, business news. Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria has commended the federal government and the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited for running the revamped Port Harcourt refinery for 180 days non-stop operation. This is coming after the refinery had been dormant for over 20 years and was revamped with a loan secured from Afrexim Bank and executed by Technimont Nigeria Limited, a subsidiary of the Mar Technimont Group, and was launched for operations in November 2024. A statement by its Publicity Secretary Joseph Obele Petron commended Technimont Nigeria Limited for exhibiting professionalism and expertise in delivering a world-class rehabilitation project, as well as the host communities for their cooperation and support during the rehabilitation process. Petron also lauded the managing director of the Port Harcourt Refining Company, Ibrahim Onoja, for his dedication to ensuring the successful rehabilitation and operation of the refinery. Petron also expressed appreciation to President Bola Tinubu for making funds available for the rehabilitation of the refinery. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil, Senator Heineken Lukbobiri, for his supervision and guidance throughout the rehabilitation process. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Mele Kyari, for his leadership and commitment to the project, and the Managing Director of NNPC Retail Limited, Hub Stockman, for the effective marketing of all the products from the refinery. World Bank reviews Nigeria's poor statistical performance, adding that the country is lagging behind its aspirational peers such as Mexico, Colombia, South Africa, and Brazil. A statement by the Budget Ministry's Director of Information and Public Relations, Mrs. Julie Osage Jacobs, disclosed this during a courtesy visit to the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, by a delegation from the World Bank. The World Bank team was led by the country director Ndiame Diop and practice manager for West and Central Africa, Mr. Johan Mitsian, and in his presentation titled Next Level Statistics to Support Nigeria's Reform and Growth Agenda, Mr. Nen said Nigeria's statistical system was not on par with those of its development counterparts. He advised an annual investment of between $10 million and $15 million in the country's statistical infrastructure would significantly improve performance and align Nigeria with its peers and assure that the federal government will continue to guarantee the independence of the National Bureau of Statistics. He commended the Bureau for consistently releasing credible and methodical data that have been relied upon by reputable international organizations, stressing that there would be no government interference in the operations of the NBS. Shipping Association of Nigeria says the high port charges are making Nigerian ports uncompetitive to customers and pushing cargoes to neighboring countries. The chairman, Mrs. Boma Alabi, who disclosed this during a press conference held over the weekend at the Lagos Yacht Club in Victoria Island, said the cost of doing business in Nigerian ports is working against the country as smaller countries are now wresting cargo from Nigeria. Alabi, who is also the president of the Shipping Agencies Clearing and Forwarding Employers Association, about that the ports have become uncompetitive because of the several charges customers are made to pay as compared to neighboring ports like Cotonou and Lome, which collects relatively low charges. Speaking on the 15% tariff hike introduced by the NBS, she urged the federal government to put on hold the tariff implementation to enable dialogue with operators, adding that the group were not informed about the charges before they were implemented, and stressed on the government should try to make the ports competitive and attractive, which can be achieved through the reduction of port charges. United States Coast Guard has commended Nigeria on the progress in the implementation of the International Ships and Ports Facility Security Code. The head of public relations at the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Mr. Osagi Edward, in a statement said the visit was to ascertain the level of implementation of the ISPS code across Nigerian ports facilities, adding that his team would report their findings to the leadership of the U.S. Coast Guard. Larson expressed confidence that NIMASA could maintain the high standards attained to date. Larson reiterated that the group observed that there is a clear and deep understanding of the implementation of the ISPS code in Nigeria, with the level of compliance observed to be at with some of the best maritime nations globally. On his part, Director General of NIMASA, Dr. Dayo Moberiola, stressed on the agency's commitment to sustaining the improved compliance levels at the nation's ports and the effect it has on how Nigeria is perceived internationally, adding that the NIMASA would continue to support efforts of the Minister of Marine and Blue Energy, Adegboyega Oyetola, to improve standards in the international maritime industry. National Pension Commission has urged state governments to implement the contributory pension scheme to boost the welfare of retirees. The Pension Reform Act of 2004 was landmark legislation that revolutionized pension administration in Nigeria by introducing the contributory pension scheme, and under the law, employees and employers jointly contribute to a retirement savings account for each worker, making pensions more sustainable. According to PENCOM, only states like Lagos, Kaduna, Ekiti, Edo, Ondo, Delta, Benue, Anambra and Jigawa states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, have implemented the CPS. Governor of Yobe State, Mai Mabuni, stated this during the visit of the Director General of the National Pension Commission, Omolola Olowo-Raran, to the Governor of Yobe State. The Governor highlighted that the adoption of the CPS will not only provide long-term benefits but also addresses issues related to pension arrears and past service liabilities, and stressed the need for sensitization programs to ensure that all stakeholders understand the scheme and operational framework. Meanwhile, the Nigerian pension industry portfolio grew about 22.60% to close December 2024 at 22.51 trillion naira from 18.36 trillion naira as of December 2023. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Kadoso, says the Apex Bank remains resolute in its commitment to maintaining order in the country's foreign exchange market by identifying and eliminating bad actors whose activities undermine the stability of the naira. This marks a marginal decline of 0.08%, indicating relative stability despite minor fluctuations in the market, and also suggests continued volatility within a narrow band as the market adjusts to recent reforms, changing demand-supply dynamics. At the Bureau de Change segment, The exchange rates remained unchanged at 1,570 naira per dollar for both days, reflecting a steady spread between the official and parallel market rates. The unchanged BDC rates point to relatively stable demand for physical dollars in the informal market, even as the CBN intensifies its surveillance and intervention strategies across foreign exchange windows, while the slight depreciation at the official window comes amid broader efforts by the Central Bank of Nigeria to align the foreign exchange market with market fundamentals. Meanwhile, had also made the bank's position clear in a statement at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting on the Apex Bank's website, stressing that the bank's role in safeguarding the market from practices that threaten price stability and investor confidence. The statement follows a series of reforms introduced by the CBN to stabilize the naira, restore investor confidence, and align the foreign exchange rate more closely with market principles, adding that the reforms are already yielding results as well as relative appreciation of the naira and improved liquidity in the foreign exchange market. He attributed this to renewed foreign investor confidence, bolstered by sustained remittance inflows, export proceeds, and foreign direct investments, and that investor sentiment has continued to improve, with demand shifting increasingly to the official foreign exchange window due to reduced speculative pressures. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says it is now in the final stages of preparing for its highly anticipated listing on the capital market by the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. The NNPCL Chief Corporate Communications Officer, NNPC Limited, Olufemi Shonaye, disclosed this in a statement on Thursday in Abuja. He said NNPC Limited was currently engaging with prospective partners in exercise NNPC Limited IPO beauty parade in line with capital markets regulations before the commencement of the initial public offer. He listed the areas of partnership include investor relations, IPO readiness advisors, and investment bank partners, adding that the company with the best offer in terms of project partnership would be selected for each of the three categories. And now to international tidbits. European Commission has unveiled a new strategy aimed at strengthening crisis preparedness across the European Union to introduce lessons in schools on how to respond to emergencies. Under the proposal, pupils across the EU will learn how to respond to crises such as natural disasters and cyber attacks, also additional preparedness lessons to school curricula, equipping pupils with skills to counter disinformation and manipulation. The initiative was part of a broader strategy presented in Brussels, which required approval from EU member states and the European Parliament, while the Commission Europe faces increasingly complex threats. To address these challenges, the EU has outlined 30 key actions and detailed action plan aimed at improving crisis response. Additionally, the Commission aimed to establish a crisis hub to improve integration among existing EU crisis structures and enhance cooperation with external partners such as NATO. British government says it is planning to ban the possession of ninja swords in the UK in a bid to curb what it describes as a national knife crime crisis. Carrying a ninja sword from August 1 could carry a penalty of up to 6 months in jail. That is set to rise to 2 years after forthcoming legislation. The Home Office on Thursday said most ninja swords had a blade of between 14 and 24 inches, 36 and 61 centimeters, with one straight cutting edge, adding that there is already a penalty of up to 4 years in prison for carrying any weapon in public. The ninja sword ban is the final part of the so-called Ronan's Law, which is a raft of anti-knife crime measures introduced in Parliament last month as part of the government's crime and policing bill. The law is named after Ronan Kanda, a teenager who was murdered with a ninja sword in 2022 by 2 other teenagers in a case of mistaken identity. U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed tariffs on auto imports and parts, provoking threats of retaliation from trading partners ahead of further promised trade levies next week. As Asian markets opened and shares in chemicals were down sharply, Japan's government described the Washington move as extremely regrettable, while Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said Tokyo was considering all kinds of countermeasures. The duties take effect on April 3 and impact foreign-made cars and light trucks, and key automobile parts will also be hit within the month. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney branded Trump's tariffs direct attack on his country's workers, adding that the cabinet would meet to discuss retaliation. Peter Navarro, Trump's senior counselor for trade and manufacturing, in a briefing after Trump's announcement, blasted foreign trade cheaters, whom he said turned America's manufacturing sector into a lower-wage assembly operation for foreign parts. He took aim at Germany and Japan for reserving the construction of higher-value parts to their countries, adding that since returning to the presidency in January, Trump has imposed fresh tariffs on imports from major U.S. trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China, alongside a 25% duty on steel and aluminum. U.S. appeals courts had called temporary ban on the petitions using the AEA in place. The third judge on the panel, Justin Walker, a Trump appointee, dissented, while Millet said the Venezuelan migrants had been deported based on the government's allegations alone, with no notice, no hearing, no opportunity, zero process to show that they are not members of the gang. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who visited the prison in El Salvador on Wednesday where the Venezuelans are being held, said on social media before her arrival that she would be meeting Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele to discuss how the United States can increase the number of deportation flights and removals of foreign criminals from the U.S. Rome's Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani says Italy has earmarked at least 68 million euros or $73.20 million to finance humanitarian projects and rebuild infrastructure in Syria, stressing that it was crucial to support the transition in Damascus. This is coming after the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham rebel group reportedly seized power in Syria in December, toppling former President Bashar al-Assad and ending decades of authoritarian rule, while an initial package has been earmarked for humanitarian initiatives in the hospital and health sector, in infrastructure, and in strengthening food supply chains. Earlier this month, it was regarded that donors at a European Union-led conference pledged 5.8 million euros to help Syria's new authorities with the challenges of the transition, and European Union countries have also suspended a range of sanctions against Syria, including restrictions related to energy, banking, transport, and reconstruction. The new authorities this month issued a constitutional declaration that retains a central role for Islamic law in the country, adding that the constitutional declaration represented a positive step and a progressive and cautious easing of sanctions should continue to foster institutional consolidation and economic recovery. French President Here now is ATN Sports News. Confederation of African Football has called on Egypt to host the 2025 Africa Under-20 Cup of Nations. Initial hosts, Cote d'Ivoire, pulled out of staging the biennial competition on Wednesday, while Egypt hosted the 2023 edition of the Under-20 AFCON. The competition is scheduled to kick off on Saturday, April 26, and CAF may now be forced to shift the kick-off date to allow Egypt time to come to the rescue. Nigeria's Flying Eagles are among the teams that will feature in the tournament. Aliyu Zubaru's side has been drawn in under KC and Imon's label 5 Star Music. On his X handle, he wrote, "Davido,